You won't believe the mess I've made, and honestly, I still can't believe it myself. I wish I could tell you this is one of those stories where everything works out in the end, but it's not, because what I did, there's no fixing it, there's no undoing it. I destroyed my marriage, I broke a family, and the worst part, I did it with someone I never should have even looked at that way, my husband's son. Even saying it out loud makes me feel sick. I know how it sounds, I know what you're thinking, and trust me, you're not judging me any harsher than I'm already judging myself. But if I don't say this somewhere, if I don't let it out, I feel like I'm going to lose my mind completely, because everything is falling apart now, and I don't know how to stop it. My name is Rachel, I'm 42 years old, and until a few months ago, I thought I had a stable life, not perfect, but stable. I'd been married to my husband Daniel for almost 15 years. We didn't have a fairy tale marriage, but we had history, we had routines, we had something that felt solid. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. Daniel is 50. He's always been the kind of man who believes providing is enough. As long as the bills are paid, as long as the house is comfortable, as long as everything looks fine on the outside, then everything must be fine on the inside too. That's how he thinks. And for a long time, I convinced myself to think that way too, because it was easier than admitting that I felt invisible, easier than admitting that somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a wife, and started feeling like furniture, something that was just there, expected, unnoticed, unquestioned. Daniel had a son from his previous marriage, Ethan. He's 24 now, and before you say anything, no, this didn't start the way you're imagining. At least, not at first. When I met Ethan, he was still a teenager, quiet, polite, distant. We weren't close, we didn't need to be. I was just his father's wife, and that was enough. Over the years, he came around occasionally, holidays, birthdays, short visits, always respectful, always a little reserved. But something changed earlier this year. Ethan moved back into our house. Temporarily, he said. He had just gone through a breakup, lost his job shortly after, and needed somewhere to stay until he figured things out. Daniel didn't hesitate. Of course you can stay, he told him. It's your home too. And just like that, everything began. At first, it was normal, or at least it looked normal. Ethan stayed in the guest room. Daniel worked long hours like always, and I continued my usual routine, cooking, cleaning, keeping everything running. But slowly, something shifted. Not suddenly, not obviously, just quietly. It started with conversations, small ones, late in the evening. After Daniel had already gone to bed, Ethan would sit in the kitchen, scrolling through his phone, and I'd be there too, cleaning up, and somehow, we started talking. At first it was harmless, just casual conversation, how his day was, what he was planning next, what went wrong in his relationship. But then, the conversations got deeper, more personal. He started opening up, about feeling lost, about not knowing where his life was going, about feeling like he disappointed everyone. And I listened, because no one had really needed me to listen in a long time. And then one night, he said something that stayed with me. You're easy to talk to, simple words, but the way he said it, like he meant it, like I mattered, like I wasn't invisible, and I didn't realize it then. But that was the moment everything started to blur, because after that, he started seeking me out. Not just cancer conversations anymore, intentional ones. He'd wait until Daniel left for work, sit with me while I had my morning coffee, ask me questions, not surface-level ones, real ones. What do you actually want? Are you happy? When was the last time you felt excited about your life? Questions no one had asked me in years, and I didn't even know how to answer them at first, because I hadn't allowed myself to think about those things, not in a long time. Daniel didn't notice, or maybe he didn't want to. He was too busy, too distracted, too comfortable in the idea that everything was fine, because from the outside, it still looked fine. But inside that house, something was shifting, something dangerous. I started looking forward to those conversations, waiting for them, thinking about what I would say next. And that's when I should have stepped back. That's when I should have created distance. That's when I should have reminded myself of the line that should never be crossed. But I didn't, because for the first time in years, I felt seen. And that feeling, it's addictive. There was one afternoon that changed everything. Daniel had left early that morning for a business trip. He was going to be gone for 3 days, and it was just me and Ethan in the house. I remember thinking, it shouldn't feel different, but it did. The house felt quieter, heavier, like something was waiting to happen. We ended up sitting in the living room, talking again. About nothing at first, then about everything. Life, regret, choices, missed opportunities. And then, he looked at me, not the way he usually did, not casually, not politely, but intensely, like he was seeing something he hadn't seen before. And suddenly, I felt exposed, like he could see straight through me. "You're not happy," he said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement, and I should have shut it down. I should have defended my marriage. I should have said something to create distance. But instead, I hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. He moved a little closer, not much, but enough, and my heart started racing. Not in a way that made sense, not in a way that was right, but in a way I couldn't ignore. "This isn't right," I said. But even as I said it, I didn't move away. And that was the moment, the exact moment, when everything crossed the line. I wish I could tell you I stopped it. I wish I could tell you I walked away. I wish I could tell you I remembered who I was supposed to be, but I didn't. Because sometimes, the biggest mistakes don't happen all at once. They happen in small steps, small decisions, small moments where you choose not to stop. And by the time you realize what you've done, you're already too far gone. And I was already too far gone. If you think that was the worst part, it wasn't. Because what happened after that is what destroyed everything. And it didn't take long, not long at all. If you've made it this far, I need you to stay with me, because it only gets worse from here. And I don't know how this ends, but I know one thing: there's no going back. I wish I could say it was a one-time mistake, something reckless, something impulsive, something I could bury and pretend never happened, but it wasn't. That would have been easier, much easier, because what actually happened was worse. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. My chest felt tight. My thoughts were racing. For a few seconds, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that what happened the night before wasn't real, that I had imagined it, that it was just some twisted dream. But then I heard movement in the house, and reality hit me all over again. I stayed in my room longer than usual, too afraid to walk out, too afraid to face him, too afraid to face myself, because how do you look at someone after crossing a line like that? How do you act normal? Eventually, I had no choice. I stepped out into the kitchen, and he was already there, standing by the counter, calm, composed, like nothing had happened. And that made it worse, so much worse. He looked at me, and for a brief moment, there was something in his eyes, not regret, not shame, something else, something I didn't want to name. "Morning," he said, just like that, normal, simple, like we were still who we used to be. I couldn't even respond properly. I mumbled something under my breath, grabbed a glass of water, and turned away, because if I looked at him too long, I knew I'd lose whatever control I had left. We avoided each other that morning, stayed in different parts of the house, spoke only when necessary, and for a moment, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe we both understood how wrong it was. Maybe we would just pretend it never happened. But avoidance doesn't erase something like that. It just delays it. That evening, I was in the kitchen again, same place, same time, like some twisted routine, and he walked in, slowly, carefully, like he already knew I wasn't going to stop him. "We need to talk," he said, and my heart dropped instantly, because I knew exactly what that meant. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied quickly, too quickly, like I was trying to shut the door before it even opened. But he didn't back off. He stepped closer, not aggressively, not forcefully, just intentionally. "You're going to pretend it didn't happen?" he asked, and I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to. "That wasn't nothing," he continued, "and you know it. That's when the panic started to creep in, because he wasn't treating it like a mistake. He wasn't treating it like something to regret. He was treating it like something real, something meaningful. It was a mistake, I said finally, forcing the words out, trying to make them sound convincing, trying to believe them myself. But he shook his head slightly. No, he said, it wasn't, Aunt. And that's when everything shifted again, because in that moment, I realized we weren't on the same page, not even close. You felt it too, he added quietly, and I hated that he said that, because a part of me knew he wasn't wrong. This is wrong, I said again, stronger this time, like repeating it would somehow make it true, like saying it out loud would fix it. But he didn't argue, he just looked at me, really looked at me, and then he said something that broke whatever wall I had left. Then why didn't you stop? Silence, heavy, uncomfortable, unavoidable. Because I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. And that silence, that was my mistake. Because silence can say more than words ever could. After that, things didn't go back to normal. They couldn't. We tried. At least, I tried. I avoided him, kept conversations short, stayed busy, stayed distant. But distance doesn't work when you're living in the same house. And Ethan, he didn't pull away. If anything, he became more present, more intentional. Little things at first, standing a little closer than necessary, letting his hand brush against mine when passing something, holding eye contact just a second too long, things that could still be denied, but couldn't be ignored. And each time, I told myself to stop it, to shut it down, to create boundaries. But each time, I hesitated, because that feeling, that dangerous, intoxicating feeling of being seen, of being wanted, it kept pulling me back in. Daniel called every night from his trip, like he always did, routine, predictable. How's everything at home? He'd ask. And I'd say, everything's fine. Every single time. I lied so easily. That scared me. Because I wasn't just lying to him, I was lying to myself. By the second night, everything escalated. It wasn't planned. At least, that's what I told myself. We were watching TV, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, trying to act normal, trying to pretend there wasn't something sitting between us. But the silence, it was loud, heavy, unavoidable. I could feel his presence, every movement, every shift, every breath. And then, he moved closer, slowly, carefully, giving me time to react, time to stop him. And I didn't. That was the moment I lost control completely. Not because I couldn't stop it, but because I chose not to. And after that night, there was no pretending anymore, no denial, no confusion. It became something real, something ongoing, something dangerous. Days turned into a routine, a secret routine. Daniel at work, or away, and us, acting like something we should never have been. And every single time, I told myself it would be the last. Every single time, I said, this can't happen again. And every single time, I broke that promise. The guilt started eating at me. Slowly at first, then all at once. I couldn't sleep properly, couldn't look at myself in the mirror, couldn't hear Daniel's voice without feeling like I was suffocating, because the reality was simple, brutal, unavoidable. I wasn't just betraying my husband, I was betraying my entire family, destroying something that could never be repaired. And yet, I kept going. That's the part I hate the most. Not that it happened once, but that I allowed it to continue, because deep down, I knew exactly how this would end. It doesn't stay hidden. Something like this, it never does. And the signs were already there, small at first, easy to dismiss. Daniel started noticing changes, not everything, but enough. You've been distant, he said one night over the phone. You okay? And I smiled into the silence. Forced, controlled. I'm just tired, I replied, but I could hear it in his voice, that slight pause, that subtle shift, doubt. And once doubt enters, it doesn't leave. The tension in the house started changing. Even when Daniel wasn't there, it felt like we were being watched, like everything we were doing was leading somewhere inevitable. And then, the moment came. The moment I had been dreading, even while I was causing it. It was small, almost nothing, but it was enough. Daniel came home earlier than expected. No warning, no call, and I heard the front door open. And in that split second, everything changed. Because for the first time, we didn't have time to prepare. And that's when I realized we were about to be exposed. If you think the worst part was the affair, you're wrong, because what happened next is what destroyed everything beyond repair. If you've made it this far, I need you to stay with me, because part 3, that's where everything falls apart, and I don't know if there's any coming back from it. The front door closed with a soft click. But to me, it sounded like everything crashing at once. My heart stopped, literally stopped, because Daniel was not supposed to be home yet, not for hours. Ethan froze. I could see it in his face, that instant shift, that realization. We didn't speak, didn't move. For a split second, we both just stood there, caught between panic and reality. And then, footsteps, slow, steady, coming down the hallway. Rachel? Daniel's voice. Normal, unaware, still trusting. And that made it worse, so much worse. I stepped back quickly, trying to create space, trying to make the room look normal, trying to make us look normal. But there was nothing normal about what had just been happening. Nothing at all. Ethan moved away too, running a hand through his hair, like that could fix anything, like that could erase what we'd done. And then Daniel walked in. He stopped the moment he saw us, and I knew, right there, before a single word was spoken, I knew. Something in his expression changed, subtle but unmistakable, confusion. Then, something sharper. What's going on? His voice wasn't loud, it wasn't angry, not yet, and somehow, that made it harder to breathe. Nothing, I said too quickly, too automatically, and the moment the word left my mouth, I knew it sounded wrong, because it wasn't just the word, it was the way I said it, the panic behind it, the guilt. Daniel looked at me, then at Ethan, then back at me again, and the silence that followed, it stretched, heavy, uncomfortable, dangerous. Why do you both look like that? He asked. No one answered. Because what could we say? That silence, that was it. That was the confirmation. You don't need proof, when the truth is standing right in front of you. Daniel took a slow step forward. Rachel, this time, there was something different in his voice, something breaking. Tell me what's going on. And I wish I could say I told the truth right then. I wish I could say I owned up to it, faced it, accepted it. But I didn't. I said nothing is going on, I repeated, weaker this time, less convincing. And then he looked at Ethan. And everything changed. Ethan, he said slowly, is there something you want to tell me? That moment, it felt like the world was holding its breath. Ethan didn't answer immediately, and that hesitation, that was everything. Daniel saw it, I saw it, we all saw it. And then, Ethan exhaled, and said the one thing that destroyed everything. You should ask her. The room went completely still, because in that moment, there was no more hiding. Daniel turned back to me, slowly, deliberately, and the look on his face, I will never forget it. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something worse. It was realization. Rachel, his voice broke slightly. What did you do? And that was it. That was the moment everything fell apart. Because there was no answer I could give that would make this better. No explanation that could fix it. No excuse that would undo it. My voice failed. Tears filled my eyes instantly. But I didn't deserve to cry, not after what I had done. I'm sorry, I whispered. And the moment those words left my mouth, everything changed. Because I'm sorry, that's not something you say when nothing happened. Daniel stepped back, like I had physically hit him. No, he said, shaking his head slowly. No, and then he looked at Ethan. You, his voice cracked, but he couldn't even finish the sentence, because how do you say it? How do you put something like that into words? How long? Daniel asked finally. And that question, it felt heavier than everything else, because it meant he already knew, not the details, but enough. I couldn't answer. Ethan didn't answer either. And again, silence said everything. Daniel let out a short, broken laugh. Wow, not loud, not dramatic, just empty. That is unbelievable. He ran his hand over his face, trying to process it, trying to understand it. My wife, he said slowly, and my son. Hearing it like that, out loud, from him, it made it real in a way nothing else had. I trusted both of you, he added, and that word, trusted, it shattered something inside me, because he wasn't wrong. I didn't just break his heart, I broke his trust. Completely. And there's no coming back from that. The anger came after, sudden, explosive. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. I flinched, not because of the volume, but because of the pain behind it. "What were you thinking?" he continued. "I don't know," I said through tears, and it was the truth, a weak, pathetic truth. "You don't know?" He snapped. "You destroyed everything. For what?" I had no answer, because there wasn't one. He turned to Ethan. "And you," his voice dropped, colder now. "You come into my house, after everything I've done for you, and this is what you do?" Ethan didn't argue, didn't defend himself. He just stood there, silent. And somehow, that silence made it worse, because there was no denial, no fight, no explanation, just truth, ugly and undeniable. "Get out," Daniel said finally. Quiet, firm, final. Ethan hesitated for a second, then nodded. And just like that, he walked out. No goodbye, no apology, just gone. And then it was just me and Daniel, and the damage between us. "I can't even look at you," he said. Those words, they hurt more than anything else. "Daniel," I tried, but he held up his hand, stopping me. "Don't," he said. "I don't want to hear it." And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't just a problem. This was the end of everything. "I gave you everything," he said quietly, "and this is what you did with it." I had no defense, no justification, no excuse, just regret, deep, crushing, endless regret. "I want you out," he said, not angry this time, not shouting, just done. And somehow, that was worse, because anger can pass, but that kind of finality, that doesn't. So now, I'm here, alone, in a place that used to feel like home, but doesn't anymore. My marriage is over, my family is shattered, and the damage I caused, it's permanent. And the worst part, I saw it coming. Every step of the way, I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway. So now I'm left with this question, the one that won't leave my mind. What do you do when you're the one who destroyed everything? How do you live with that? Because I don't know. I genuinely don't know. If you've listened this far, I need you to tell me something. What would you do in my situation? Is there any way to fix this, or is it already too late? I know I don't deserve sympathy. I know I brought this on myself, but I need to hear it from someone, anyone. So please, leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell me honestly, even if it's harsh. And if you enjoy stories like this, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video. See you in my next video.